You humble me. Thank you. Dr. Mick, thank you for being here. I'd like to acknowledge that we stand on the territorial lands of the Beothuk and the Mi'kmaq, and I'm humbled as an Indigenous Labrador Two-Spirit woman to stand on lands that ancestors have stood on before. Before we get started, if we could pull that back, Carrie. What I've done, because trying to, sorry, usually I don't have a problem with my voice. There was a time when I first started within all of this and trying to learn and wrap my head around what was happening to us in Labrador. There was a connection made with elders, with knowledge holders, but also with people from afar, because it was almost a panic that sort of started, even though it was 2011, and it was sitting in environmental assessment hearings and realizing what was happening when you sit for 30 days and you watch Labradorian after Labradorian at 15-minute intervals stand up and say, you can't do this, and to realize they were going to. And so what do you do? Who do you ask for help? And it was actually sort of reaching out other places, and Jerry's here in the room. Jerry Rogers was one individual who, we talked about this a little bit last night, she said, take pictures, keep taking pictures, because we don't really realize we're losing our history until we lose it. So I have been since 2011. At one point, I was going to Muskrat Falls weekly and taking a documented sort of history of the changes that were happening. I did this, I want to say up to 2015, but I am facing charges for continuing to do not just what I saw as a responsibility to the next generations to hold that history, but also because I have a responsibility to ceremony, and I am a eagle whistle carrier. I am also of mixed Inuit descent, and ceremony in sacred spaces is something we are losing for so quickly in this nation. And I have a responsibility to honor ancestors, my place in this circle, and those yet to come. Because of Nalcor's injunction, I am no longer able to do that unless I want to incur further legal costs to a team of us that are already, there's 17 of us in trial right now, pleading not guilty. And ironically, the dates of our trial, October the 22nd to the 26th of this year, is the 2 years to the date that the occupation happened at the Muskrat Falls worksite in 2016, and that hunger strikers, one hunger striker was on the campsite Kirk Lethbridge. Many people don't realize that because there was so much happening, but there was also 3 other hunger strikers that we know quite well who went to Ottawa at the same time. And the 26th was actually when the fated, I stood with many familiar faces in this room as we heard the new methyl mercury agreement, and our hearts broke. And I sensed that on the 26th, when we stand up in front of a judge and he makes our decision about us, and most of us, I would imagine, are going to be found guilty of breaking rule of law, there will be another heartbreak that will happen, but at the same time, there will be a victory because we did not compromise. So the laws that I am responsible to are Indigenous, and that is sort of what I would like to talk about, because the resistance for me is a responsibility. And it needs to be a responsibility for all of us. This is a human condition of a responsibility to what sustains us. We are a part of a circle. We do not own this triangle as the colonial view would like us to believe. I've gone totally off script, so I'll pull myself back. For anyone. So what I have done, this is, some of these pictures have not ever been seen. These are pictures, my personal pictures. Some of them are popular ones where I wasn't there, the photographer, but they are being shared nonetheless. And what I want us to think about, now 1 second, what I want us to think about, because I'm going to throw out a whole bunch of words, so it's not going to be, most of you have heard me speak before, so it's, and I'm preaching to a choir here, but what I would also like to do is to inspire us to think about, from the second that we started last night, we have been in ceremony and we continue to be in ceremony. I got up this morning and I worked with my medicines and I said my prayers about what this is all about and how do we wake up beyond what's in this room. And I hope it's the live stream. I hope that thing is going mad over there because we need people to pay attention. If you think of, for example, when the Land Protectors held a sharing circle with Dwight Ball and the 4 Labrador MHAs, we had over 20,000 views within the first week. There is a power. That's why I took on communications, because there's a power in how we find our bigger circle. So what I want you to consider as you see these pictures, I want you to ask yourself the question, what is ceremony? And then what is destruction? And after we watch these and I give you some words as we think about this, that we have a little discussion afterwards, or maybe an internal discussion, because really that's where it all starts. You know, all of us had to make a decision at some point. So what will be our place within this story? And that is what we're doing, is writing a story. So now we can start. Fire and water. I'm Two-Spirit. This is what I resonate with. The resistance, the pride that comes into this, that resiliency, the peace in the face of chaos, the land protection, the prayer, the medicines, the children, the smudging, the solidarity, the people who become family, the elders, the youth, the hunger strikers, the beauty of nature, being on the land, the circle, seals, our culture. Muskrat Falls is still a place of ceremony. The campaigns, the tears, the laughter, the culture, the spirits, the finding each other, the singing and the dancing, Grand Riverkeeper Labrador, all of the history and the artifacts, our fish, the Labrador flag, the drumming and the sharing our skills and bringing our message across Turtle Island, the spirits, the art, the research, the canoeing, the journalism, the being on the water, my brother, my journey, my sobriety, finding love, the seasons, the trees and the berries and life everywhere, animals, prayer ribbons, ancestors, the walking and the walks, our heroes and our mentors, the sacred fires, the offerings to the land and to the water, the food, the music, the signage, the day and night, sun and moon on that river, the chants, the friends of Grand River, our Kudliks, the solidarity with Labrador, the vigils, the tents, the campouts, the pipe trees, the pipe ceremonies, the ice and the water, the caribou, the tea and the boil-ups, Mother Nature and sharing circles, the peaceful actions, the snowshoeing, the generations, our traditional foods. These things to me are ceremony. This is the North Spur before they gutted it. When it had trees, when we could tell the seasons by looking at them. So what is the destruction? It's the stripping of our land. It's the putting the concrete in the veins of Mother Earth. The RCMP, their forces, their intimidation, showing up at our doorsteps, waking up blood trauma, making it about the jobs. Experts who validate our very demise. The construction in a place of history, the business, the wealth over health, mega dams, seals and other animals being poisoned, the threats to our fish and to our ducks and to our geese, to all of the animals of the river, the ones that we eat and the ones that we just value. The impacts in Lake Melville, methyl mercury, habitat destruction, trees left to rot, the North Spur failing. These are some of the pictures. That is our sacred trail. It's been there for thousands of years. Our ancestors have walked it. I'll never forget the first time I saw that sign that told me it was dangerous to step on traditional lands. When we said save Muskrat Falls before we said stop it. Some people say, where were they all to? Why weren't we doing things before 2016? We were. And so were our ancestors before us. This is ceremony on a piece of the North Spur that no longer exists. That was at Muskrat Falls Lookout. These are trees that were on the North Spur. A fire at the nighttime on the riverbank. The first camp out in what's now called Peace Camp was 2013. Watching the death of sacred space, knowing our history is considered a Newfoundland warehouse of resources. The divides between Newfoundland and Labrador, the flooding, our inability to protect Mother Earth, our helplessness. Now we have flood zones. We have warning signs telling us to stay out. This was the first time when I walked and dropped to my knees and sobbed when I saw my ancestors and other ancestors of people of Labrador, their culture just dug up and made into. This is what happens when you feel your culture being torn away from you. So the cultural genocide, the being ignored by our own leaders in our government, Nalcor's injunction of 2013 and 2016, strangers allowed on our lands, but if we stepped there, we would be arrested. The colonialism, the towers and the lines, the silence of doing nothing, the destruction of our past. The economics, this protester image, the hurt, the feeling alone, the quick clay, the flooding of Mud Lake, the workers who take over our land and our community, the corruption, the courts and the trials, the politics of this project, the economics that are used against us. The world that is making this project about money, who have completely forgot about our lives. These are some of the things that are destruction. This is Mud Lake, on the way to Mud Lake. The many proud warriors we get to stand with, the places we get to go. None of us ever imagined this is where we would be. For me, this is my mom and my grandmother and myself. This is the man that most people don't really know, but they heard about VOCM lots. Actually, VOCM hosted his funeral because he called Open Line so much. He was our historian. He passed away a couple of years ago. This was a drum ceremony that we held in 2014 when all the artifacts started to get dug up. This was a landslide. This happened in the past year or so. This is here. Not exactly here, but Nalcor's head office. I had never in my life, and most of us had not, ever had to stand in line and look RCMP in the face like that. This is one of the pictures they'll use as evidence against me. This was the last vigil walk that I got to be a part of in 2015, before it was illegal for me to step on those grounds. One of the things we have constantly said is that when we bring our medicines and when we bring our drums and when we bring our culture, they can no longer say that we are protesting. What we are doing is act of ceremony. That's my feeling and belief of it. That picture of me on the rock and this one, these are offering prayers to the trees, offering medicines to the falls, and begging forgiveness for what I was unable to do. And being reminded by those same spirits that we still walk the path and we do what we can. Strange to me that you can see tractors, and there was a time I never used to blink an eye. That was just a part of seeing construction work happen. But to step onto the falls and see them there like that, it was just like having aliens sort of, you realize what they're ripping up. And that no one would listen. Like there's trees from the north side. Places we used to go snowshoeing, places that for generations have walked these places. So when you see their pictures that Nalcor puts out of their progress reports, I want you to remember these pictures. This was Dennis Burden, who chopped into the Nalcor hydro pole, and they made it sound like he had put everybody at risk. It was a very carefully planned event. One of the first times that I actually sort of picked up the protest banner, 2012, North Spur, when it had lots of trees and berries and life. Spirit Mountain is the only piece that now is left untouched. Trails thousands of years old, gone. And there was something very ravaging about seeing that. And that lit a fire for me. While it broke my heart, it's the whole water-fire balance. We come back to that place. And you make a conscious decision. Will I be a part of ceremony? Will I be a part of destruction? This is the traditional trail. This is Nalcor's trail. All of that is gone. They found artifacts over 3,000 years old. They found between the north and south side over 70,000 artifacts, over 60 campsites and intertwined trail systems of multiple cultures, of all Labrador Indigenous cultures, including settler cultures, the Hudson Bay Company. All of it is gone. And not once did governments stand up and say, Indigenous governments included, this should be a World Heritage Site for the amount of history that's here. But let me remind you, they found one gravesite of a Basque whaler's child in Red Bay, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site today. We got excited when satellites found a Viking village. That was happening at the same time that they were tearing apart our history. That didn't make the news. And this is what, when we talk Indigenous resistance, please don't confuse. This is human resistance. Do not leave this just to us. Stand with us. Be a part of the circle, because that's what we all are. I don't look at these pictures and see who's an Inuk and who's an Inuit and who's a Labradorian. I see humans who understand their place in history and their responsibility to Mother Earth. These are people who have become family, friends, loved ones. This has been our life's work, but we have never intended it to be so. I would much rather be in my canoe. I would rather much sit right there by the falls. People say to me, Muskrat Falls is gone. No, she's not. She's underwater. We just can't hear her anymore. And it's our job to free her. That canoe on that river, same river that my brother drowned in, I went and did my first 24-hour fast and did ceremony. It was my elder, Kirk Lethbridge, who took me. I still go back to that place as long as I can go back to that place. But Muskrat Falls, I can't ever go back there until they decide they're finished with it. But I say, we're not finished with it. We owe something to all of our ancestors and next generations. These are all rallies and events that happened well before 2016. When we were doing everything that we could. This is one of my favorite pictures that my partner, Jacinda Beals, took of me, and I didn't know she took it. But there's a ceremony that happens when you get by water. This is the water that's sacred for me. I would be rest assured that you all have water or lands or places that are sacred to you. And I asked you if someone came in and decided to tell you you could never go there again. And they didn't warn you, because when the first injunction came and when they put up their first no trespassing sign, no one came and told us first. This is what colonialism is doing, not just to our province, not just to our country, but still to our planet. Now we need to make a decision. Many of us already have. But we need to keep having those conversations. I was in the cab yesterday, and I tend to pick and choose because you never know, sometimes you can get a little bit wild. But he asked me why I was in town, and so I told him, and that led to about a 10-minute conversation where we stayed sitting in the cab outside the hotel, and he thanked me and he said, "I'm so sorry that I haven't been able to do anything." And I reminded him, in this 10 minutes you just sat and shared energy with me, you did. So whether it's big or small, we make a choice. Will your story be of ceremony, or will your story be of destruction? Thank you.